What is up, college football nation? We are back. Super fun week this week on tomorrow's slate. A lot of games, a lot of high-scoring games. So I think there's a lot of good opportunity for us to make some money. And there's certainly some obvious games that we want to target that we're going to get super excited about this week. So one of my goals today and this week was to keep the show to 30 minutes so you guys can get in, build some winning lineups quickly, and get out. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to move quick, and we're going to break down this slate. So the obvious one here is going to be the Alabama-Ole Miss game. There's an over-under total of 80, which is insane. I'm sure there's going to be very high ownership rates in this game. Everyone else can see that. They put up a ridiculous amount of points when they played each other last year. There's two NFL quarterbacks. So I think there will be a lot of points. It's just a matter of how we're going to find value for fantasy. So without further ado, I think we are. I'm just going to dive right into things. We're going to go through each game like we normally do. I'll break down each depth chart, who we're going to be targeting, and we'll go from there. So let's pull up here. All right, so we're gonna go through the depth charts here. I got Draftkings up with some prices and ownership. First game to go through, and it should be a quick one, is going to be this Arkansas and Georgia game. So Georgia's is an easy target for DFS because they're so good on defense. I'm not going to play anybody on Arkansas. And I like Arkansas this year. I think they're an improved team, but I'm actually going to completely fade the Razorbacks. On the Bulldog side, it's hard to tell because they've been killing teams so much that like their main players haven't been playing full games. So it's hard to tell who's going to get the majority of the touches. JT Daniels is affordable enough, but I just think there's more upside out there. If you wanted to play Daniels, I'd be okay with it. They finally came down on the price for Zamir White. He would be a GPP play to me with the way they're splitting up touches. It's just hard to rely on value, but I could see him getting there this week. And then the last play at receiver would be Burton, who Burton's been playing well. He certainly has upside and the ability to break the slate. He's looked really good. He makes a lot of big plays. If you wanted to go there, I would certainly be okay with that. But for the most part, I don't like the game script here. So I'm going to probably be leaning more towards fading this game altogether. I thought there was another receiver on Georgia that we were missing that was off to a good start this season. I'm going to take a quick look just to make sure we're not forgetting anybody because – the Draftkings depth charts aren't always the most reliable. So if I take a quick peek, Brock Bowers. Yeah, I knew something didn't seem right. So I don't know why Brock Bowers isn't on there. Brock Bowers is definitely their best receiver, and I would prioritize if you were going to play somebody, especially Daniels, then I would prioritize getting Brock Bowers. But like I said, I'm still going to stick to my guns, and I'm probably going to be super light, if not fade altogether, on this game. Next game we're going to look at here is the let's just pull it up. All right. Well, I lost you guys. I don't know where the depth chart went. I was just going through it with everyone, and now, shoot. Sorry, team. Here it is. Okay. All right. So the next thing we're going to go through is the Tennessee-Missouri game. This one's interesting because Missouri's defense has been atrocious, and they've played at a fast pace. So they want to throw the ball. I think they threw it like 41 times last week. Basilak at 7,300 is okay. I don't love Basilak from a DFS perspective because they don't have like a go-to number one like slate breaker receiver. So you can play him alone, but he's not like a rusher. It's just like an awkward fit. He will throw the ball a ton. He definitely has some upside. It's just hard to find who to pair with him and things like that. I don't like what's going on with the quarterback situation in Tennessee. I feel like either one of these two guys could play. They could even both play, which would just kind of negate both of them. So I think this is too much in the air. If we get clarity that one of them is going to start and play most of the game, then I might think about it. But as of what I know now, I wouldn't be playing either one of these quarterbacks on Tennessee. I think both Tennessee running backs are viable. And I really like Jabari Small because Small and Emmons seem to be in a timeshare, basically splitting carries. And Small's almost $2,000 less. So at the discount, I'll take Small getting equal amount of carries at a really bargain price against a team that's just been horrendous against the run. They got tore up last week against BC. I see no reason why they're not able to run all over them. The only thing you might want to be cautious of is if Tennessee decides to run with the quarterback and carries aren't as fruitful as you would like. And then at receiver, Jalen Hyatt's their number one receiver. He's had some issues early in the year. He was hurt. He missed a few games. I think maybe people forgot about him. This is the number one receiver on the team. He hasn't done much recently. So this is another one where it's not safe because who knows how much they're going to feed him this yet. He hasn't been played all that much. But if in big tournaments at this price, especially if when you want to pay up to get some studs in those other games, I think he can be a nice salary saver. On the Missouri side, Tyler Badie is one of the best backs in the nation. They throw to him. They give him the ball. He's a really high floor. I think there's some other guys I might prefer at his price tag. I think he's going to be good. I mean, he's a great player. Just a matter of, is he the guy you want to be your top price player, which that I'm not sure about. So there's no issue. I have no issue with playing Tyler Badie. He's great. It's just, can you stomach that price tag on him? And then I'm not looking at any of these receivers. The only one I might consider is Kiki Chisholm, who, is getting a few catches. He just doesn't have that game-breaking ability at 5,200. I don't love him. I might have a few shares of him, but for the most part, I won't be too heavy here on this game. Now let's move over to this Texas TCU game. Texas looked great last week. They finally found something. They were horrible to begin the year. They really priced Casey Thompson up here at 8,400. At this price, I'm just not interested. That's way too much of an adjustment for me. I do think Bijan Robinson is a great play. I'd rather pay the 500 more for him than Badie. TCU got absolutely embarrassed on the ground by SMU last week, and I see no reason why Robinson doesn't make it even worse. So I think Robinson's going to go off. He's another one. It's just a matter of how many times, I'm going to have him for sure, my shares of him, but you can't go all in on him because he's just too expensive and you want to get some of these other studs in there. So, play him where you can. I'm definitely going to get my shares, but it's not a lock button for the reason that his price tag is high, but he's going to have a great game. At receiver, I might consider Jordan Whittington. At 5,500, I'll have a few shares there. For the most part, I'm really more focused on the run game here. I'm not going to go too crazy, kind of squeezing in too much of these other players on the Texas side. On the TCU side, Max Duggan's interesting because he's one of those dual threat, two players in one. He can run and he can throw. I think he has enough upside where he's always playable in a game that could, have a pretty good game script. Zach Evans is also just lights out. He's an elite player. They finally priced him appropriately. I mean, we were getting discounts with him early in the year where they were disrespecting him and we haven't had to play him. Now they've priced him up to where he should be priced. It's a fair price. He's really good. But at this point, it's not a must play anymore. I'm no issue with it. I wouldn't play Evans with Duggan, probably play one or the other. And then if you want to pair, you definitely don't have to. And Duggan's one of the quarterbacks that I would just play naked. I don't need to pair him with a receiver. If you did, his best receiver is Quentin Johnson, but they don't throw enough to pay $6,800 for a receiver on this team. So I'd rather pair him with one of the cheaper options, maybe somebody like Tay Barber, who did break out last week with a 100-yard game at $4,800. That's the more play I like. Or if not, I'm okay with just playing him alone. Now, moving right along to the Michigan-Wisconsin game, this is going to be quick. I'm almost going to say there's only one player in this game that I'm going to consider that way. I'm completely fading Michigan. Wisconsin's got one of the best run Ds in the country, and all Michigan wants to do is run. So we haven't seen them throw the ball enough to even consider the passing game. And I'm not going to go take a shot on these running backs against what looks like one of the best run Ds in the country. Who I might consider is Ches Malusi, who broke out last week. He had a great game. They want to give him the ball. Michigan looked like they could be beat against the run, especially against Rutgers last week. They gave up, I think, 100 yards on the ground. So if you want to take a shot with Malusi, fair enough price to 6,400, that I'm okay with. But you got to stomach, this isn't going to be a great game, sir. This is probably going to be a pretty low-scoring game. So if you want to, if you want to take a shot on one of the players in this game, he's probably the guy to go for. But I'm completely okay with fading this game as well. Now, here's an interesting one. This Louisville Wake Forest game, both teams have a fast pace. There should be a lot of plays run. They also have better defenses than I think they're getting credit for. So I'm going back and forth on this game. Malik Cunningham is one of my favorite players in the country. I love Malik Cunningham. They really priced him up here. He is, again, one of the two players. He's their leading rusher, or he's got most rushing touchdowns at least. And he can throw. So, and there's a few guys like Ford and Watkins who now Cunningham is you can pair with. So if you want, I'm never going to say don't play Cunningham, but Wake Forest is tough. This is a good football team. They got a good defense. So, at this price, I wouldn't put a Staples button. I wouldn't lock him in at all. He can play. You can put him in a few like Jarris just because he's so good. But Wake Forest is going to be a tough defense for him. I wouldn't play any of these backs. If you wanted to get sneaky and get a discount back with Maurice Berkeley, I'm okay with that because they seem to be getting him maybe a little bit more involved, but maybe that's one lineup or two. You definitely use sparingly there. And then the receivers, plenty of these guys are in play. I think Jordan Watkins is starting to break out as maybe their number one option. At 4,800, he's in play. Bruce Huggins is a big play guy, not a cash play, but he's a guy that can break one off. So if you wanted to pair him with Cunningham, that's a nice GPP option. Justin Marshall got more involved this week at 3,400. He's a nice salary saver. And Marshawn Ford, they are making a priority to get the ball to. His targets are going up at 4,700. I think that is a very fair price. Marshawn Ford is probably the one guy on the team I'd be looking to play outside of not playing Cunningham, right? I would play him alone. On the Wake Forest side, I'm just not interested in Sam Hartman at 7,500. I think we can do better at quarterback. Christian Beal-Smith is just really not that good. I like him. He's just always disappointing. So until he shows me something, I'm going to pass there. Christian Turner's been getting some carries at 3,400. He's another one of those, like, you want to be a sneaky GPP play and sneak in a backup running back. He's one of the guys you can do it for, but there's certainly got to be better plays than that. The play of the game here is Jacory Robinson. The price down to 5,200. Yeah, he has had a slow start. He hasn't been great this year. But this guy coming in was probably, I don't know this for sure, but I would assume he was a preseason All-American. He's one of the receivers in the country. He has been a slow start. He's going to pop, and it's going to be in the next couple of weeks. I think this could be the spot, a fast-paced game. I am going to be very overweight on Jacory Robertson. At this price, this is the type of value play we're looking for to round out our roster. So Jacory Robertson might be my highest owned receiver this week. If not, he's going to be in my top 5 for sure. So we're definitely going to hammer in Robertson and other than that, Perry would be in play, but I just think Roberson's the better player at a cheaper price, so we might as well go there. Moving on, we're breezing through here. We're going to get a good speed. So we're going to move over to this USC-Colorado game. Slovis is disappointed so far this year. They haven't been as explosive as we thought they would have been at USC. And Colorado's I'm not sure this is the get-right game. Colorado has a way of bleeding clock, running the ball, playing defense. It's not a game script that we would like for Slovis. The saving grace for Slovis is that they've really priced him down here. So, compared to some of the options, if you want to get a more bargain quarterback who has the upside to get you, 3 touchdowns, Slovis does have that. So I'd be okay with him because of the price. But this isn't a super sexy game script or over total that we really want to hammer him in. Keontae Ingram has taken over the lead back role, but at 6,700, I'm not really interested there. I think that's too much of a price adjustment for me to go there. Drake London's the best receiver in the country. He's almost unstoppable. Definitely going to get my shares in, but at 8,500, that's really expensive. He really needs to go off, which he probably will. So, I'm okay with playing him. But it's just hard to be balanced. You squeeze a lot of guys in at this price. So I'll play him where I can, but he's really expensive, but he's the best player, best receiver in the country, and probably by a lot. I'd be okay with squeezing in Taj Washington. He might catch a touchdown. He's definitely more of a cash play for me than he would be a GPP play. And Gary Bryant Jr. is someone they're prioritizing. They're getting the ball to. I like him more than Taj Washington. You got to pay more, but I think he's the better player. So if you wanted to go pivot off of Slovis or play two receivers on this team, I would go Bryant second and Washington would be my third play. Now, over on the Colorado side, we're not playing anybody. They stink, and it's not worth wasting any of our money on any of them. So fade. Moving on. Let's go. Let's check out this. I want to make sure I don't miss any games here. What's after this USC game? All right, let's look at this Cincinnati Notre Dame game. So I think this game could be surprising. These are both historically pretty good defenses, but Notre Dame's defense has been disappointing this year. I don't think this is a get-right spot. I think it could be the opposite. I think this could be a spot where it's a surprising higher total than we would expect. I'll start on the Cincinnati side. They've come down the price with Ritter. Ritter's not like a major runner in that he's not going to rush for 100 yards, but they do give him the ball on the goal line, so he can rush for a touchdown. If he has one of those games where he throws for 250 and 2 and runs 1 or 2 in, his price point is more than affordable at 7,500. And I don't think this is the Notre Dame defense that's really going to shut them down. I think there's going to be more points scored here than anticipated. So I'm okay with giving a shot on Ritter on what looks like to be a susceptible Notre Dame defense. I actually prefer Ritter to Ford, but if you wanted to go Ford instead, I'd be okay with that. Either way, I think Notre Dame can be beat. So one of the two, but I wouldn't play both. And then if you wanted to pair him with a receiver, Pierce is their best receiver. They go to Michael Young. None of these guys are great. I wouldn't, you can play Ritter alone. You don't need to pair him with any of these guys. If you wanted to, maybe one of the top 3 or 4 guys you can, but none of them are game breakers. You're really relying on them catching a touchdown pass to meet value. And then on the Notre Dame side, Kyren Williams' price is laughable. $5,000, what could be an All-American running back. Even though Cincinnati's got a tough defense, it's not a cakewalk, but this is a guy that they want to feature in this offense. They want to get him the ball. He should get the volume. He'll catch passes. I'm certainly he's going to be one of my top 3 running backs this week just because of the price. When you get one of the best running backs in the country for $5K, I don't care who he's playing, it's worth taking a shot on. They want to get him the ball. And they don't want to make Jack Cohn do everything. They saw that Jack Cohn is better, more in a secondary option than kind of doing the whole offense. And so this is Kyren Williams' offense. And so he's going to get the ball. Kyren Williams is a great play this week. Kevin Austin broke out. I told you guys the first week I did the show that he's a sleeper, and he finally did break out. He's their best receiver, and he's good. Cincinnati's got a good defense. At this price, I think there's better options at receiver. But who I will take a shot on here is Michael Mayer, who, in week 2 or 3 of the season, they had priced up as the highest priced receiver in the whole slate. Now they've adjusted him back down to normal. They still throw him the ball a ton. He's got a high floor. I love Mayer for cash games. He's almost a lock button for cash games. They throw him the ball too much. In Draftkings with the point per reception, you got to play Mayer. And I like him in GPPs as well. I think he can score. I won't be as heavy on him in the big tournaments, but he's definitely playable in all formats. So definitely want to play Kyren, and Mayer is in play as well. Now heading over to the game of the week, Alabama, Mississippi. This is going to be exciting. Last year's game was ridiculous. It had a zillion points. The over-under is 80. So we're expecting this to be, a scoring fest. If you want to, I'm okay with going either way. For GPPs, if you want to just hammer this game and play like 6 players, 8 players, fine. I'd be okay with that. This could be a wild game. If you want to go the opposite and fade it and say I'm expecting to go under and be different in a GPP, that's fine too, because I expect these guys to be pretty high owned. And so if you're different and then, Alabama ends up having a good defensive game or something like that, I could see that happening. So there's a wide range of outcomes in this game. So let's just kind of go through. I'll start on the Alabama side. Bryce Young could throw for 6 touchdowns. He could be insane. He should play all 4 quarters. But at 10K on this slate, he'd have to be so good. He really has to have 400 yards and 6 touchdowns for the 10K to make sense to me. So, or you have to just be great at finding value in the 3K range, which this week there is some guys you could do that with, but I just think there's other quarterback options. I don't love the 10K. So that's not my go-to. That's not my preference play here. I think Brian Robinson breaks out here. I think Brian Robinson is the play on Alabama at 6,500. It's a reasonable price. He has a great yards per carry. I don't think he's given him enough carries to really explode yet. I think this is a game going back and forth. He'll get enough carries. If he gets in the end zone once or twice, he'll easily meet value. And then these receivers, it's an interesting battle here. I mean, I think my preference is Mechie at the lower price point. They throw to a lot. Jamison Williams is the big play guy, certainly in play for GPP, but at this price, he's got to do a lot, which he certainly can. But I think there's some other guys I might prefer if I'm going to spend up on. The play of the Alabama game, which is probably going to be chalk, seems to be Jaleel Billingsley, who was in Saban's doghouse to start the year. And now he's come out of the doghouse. He had a 100-yard game last week. They look to be getting him the ball. He's a mismatch for defenses. If they feature him again this week, he could go off at 3,600. I expect him to be pretty chalky. Don't think you're getting different by playing him. I think everyone's going to play him at this price. But, again, we're going to need to find value somewhere, and this is certainly one of my favorite value plays of the slate. On the Ole Miss side, I think Matt Corral is the most underrated player in the country. He, I think, should win the Heisman, and I also think he should be a first-round draft pick. I mean, this guy is – with or without NFL, receiver Moore, who's now on the Jets, this guy is just unstoppable. He runs. He's a runner. He was coming out of high school. He's one of the top dual threat quarterbacks in the country. He can throw for 300 yards every week. I don't think Alabama's going to shut him down. So I love Corral. I'm going to be playing a ton of Corral this week. If you recall, Ole Miss last year against Alabama ran all over them. They had 200-yard rushers, I think. If you want to do that again, I'm okay with that, especially with Ely, who seems to be the dominant back here. 6,100 is a little pricey. And don't forget, it still is Alabama defense, who usually is stingy, but if you're just looking at last year's game, they did light them up. So if you're buying the game script, the super high-scoring game, then yeah, you can go with him. I'm going to play him, but I'm not going to go crazy. I'm not going to be too overweight. And then at receiver, there's 3 receivers to even consider. It's Drummond, Mingo, and Sanders. Drummond's really priced up, but he's the best player. He's the NFL talent. He's the guy they feature. So even with the priced up, I'll get my shares of Drummond just because I'm planning to be so heavy on Corral. I think he's the best matchup. But I will certainly have my shares of Sanders and Mingo as well. I think if the game is going to be an 80 over-under, there's going to be points scored. I don't think Ole Miss gets shut down here. I think they score with Bama. So, I'll sprinkle in my shares of these Ole Miss receivers to pair with Corral as well. Heading over to this Oregon-Stanford game. This game is yucky. Not much I like about it. Anthony Brown, I would have liked. I think if he was a little bit cheaper at this price, I don't think I love Anthony Brown, Oregon's quarterback. The only guy in this game I'm really considering is C.J. Verdell at 7,000, who has the upside. He's a GPP play because he does share carries with Travis Dye, so I don't want to be playing him in cash at this price, but he can go off. So for GPPs, I'm okay with Verdell. Other than that, I'm pretty much out on Oregon, and Oregon's defense has been so good that I don't trust anyone on Stanford. So Stanford's a complete fade for me, and really just looking at Verdell on the Oregon side. Now, I actually find this Texas Tech West Virginia game to be interesting. The total here for Texas Tech is low. West Virginia's got an elite defense. Henry Colombi is a senior. He's been there forever. He's been their backup forever, but he's gotten in games because they've had a lot of injuries. And he shows he's not that bad. At $7K, he's affordable. They're probably going to have to throw a lot in this game. I think he can be sneaky. Now, I wouldn't play him in cash because they're playing such a good defense, but if you want to get different with a low-owned, maybe GPP targeted quarterback, I'm okay with a Texas Tech quarterback here who should get plenty of opportunities to score. My favorite play here is on the Texas Tech side, though, is going to be Sir Roderick Thompson. As long as Taj Brooks is out, which it looks like he's not going to play. If Taj Brooks does not play, Sir Roderick Thompson's volume is going to be really high. Now, he's got a tough battle. West Virginia defense can get stops, and they're really tough up front. But at 4,600, it's going to be hard to find a guy who's going to get as many touches as Sir Roderick Thompson and who is as talented as he is. So this is one of those where it's just the talent outweighs the matchup and the price. So Sir Roderick Thompson, I am interested in. And then Eric Uzakanma seems like he's been around forever. They throw to him 10 times a game. 6,300, I think he's pretty safe. Definitely a cash play. Definitely someone I like a lot for cash. I'll also be looking at him for tournaments, but with tournaments, there's some other guys I think I prefer more. So I'll just be a little bit lower owned in tournaments, but he's in play both ways. Same with Kalon Geiger, who broke out last week, had a huge game. They're going to him a lot. If this is a situation where they're struggling to run, if West Virginia is able to bottle him up, then they could, he could find some opening. So I'll be okay with that play as well. And Travis Kuntz kind of went off last week. He's one of the better receiving tight ends in the country. They'd like to get him the ball. He has touchdown upside. At 4,900, he's very affordable. I think he's a good play both for cash and for GPP. So Kuntz is definitely in play here as well. Now over on the West Virginia side, I just very recently came around to Doeg just because it's hard to find value quarterbacks at 6,200. You're not going to find somebody playable at a better price against the Texas Tech defense, who is not that bad against the run, and they're terrible against the pass. So if they're able to kind of bottle up Letty Brown and West Virginia has to throw, I think Doeg could get value here at 6,200. Letty Brown's great. I see no issues with playing Letty Brown. He can break a few off and reach target. I think there's some guys I prefer at running back at better value per dollar. But I certainly see the upside with Letty Brown here, so I have no qualms with playing him. And then the receivers, for me, it's a three-headed monster. Between Winston and Ford Wheaton are my 1A and B. They got 8 or 9 targets each last week. These are the two guys I'll be focusing on, especially at the better prices. Sam James is the guy. They do target in the red zone a lot. A little less target. He's the third, but he's the highest price. So of the three, I would go Winston, Ford Wheaton, James, but all three of them are in play if you're looking for any West Virginia pass catchers. On the Oklahoma KSU side, this is a spot to get different. I mean, Oklahoma has been disappointing for what we would have expected from what was probably the Heisman favorite in Spencer Rattler coming into the year. I don't think they've lost it. I think they just had a slow start. I think they're going to come, and I think it could be this week. So I'm in. I think now's the time. People might overlook them. They see this Alabama game. They're going to be really heavy there. Maybe people won't be playing Rattler. I think this is a time to go buy back in. You want to be first, not last, in getting back to the rebound. And so, I think they rebound this week. I will be playing my shares of Oklahoma. I like Rattler. I'm going to completely fade the running game. If I'm going Oklahoma, we're going all in on Rattler in the passing game and then figuring it out. And with that being said, they came down with the prices. So Marvin Mims, who has been super disappointing this year, he had 9 touchdowns last year. He hasn't done much of anything this year. They've brought his price down. I don't think he's completely lost. I think they get him back involved this week. So Mims is a great pairing with Rattler. Woods is probably their best receiver right now. So he's Woods or Hasselwood, but Woods at 5,300 is the better value. So you compare any of these guys, any of these top 4 guys, including Mario Williams, are fine plays. Over on the Kansas State side, the only guy that's maybe an option is Deuce Vaughn. He is a great player. They're having some quarterback issues. They're not sure who's going to play. I think Skylar's hurt. There's a lot of question marks. Oklahoma's defense isn't as bad as they used to be. If you want to play Deuce, I'm okay with it. But other than that, I wouldn't go. I wouldn't play anyone on the KSU side. Last but not least, Ohio State and Rutgers. So, as I mentioned last week, I root for Rutgers. I like Rutgers. I live in New Jersey. I like to see Rutgers do well. They have no chance to beat Ohio State. They're going to get rolled. But Ohio State's defense, excuse me. Sorry about that. Ohio State's defense is not as good as we remember, as they used to be. They're susceptible. They're going to score 100 points. Maybe not. Rutgers' defense isn't as bad as we thought. I don't think this is going to be one of those slow-paced, low-scoring affairs. Oz is going to get their points. They're too good on offense. So, and to my opinion, I think it's one of those, will Rutgers be able to maybe keep in the game and keep up? So, if you guys remember, it wasn't too long ago, C.J. Stroud price was $10K. He was the highest priced quarterback on the slate. This is a significant adjustment. Now, they found the running game. They've adjusted. They're running the ball more, fine, but I think this might be an over-adjustment. C.J. Stroud could still be the best quarterback. So, at 8,300, he's definitely in play for me against a Rutgers team that, should have trouble stopping Ohio State. TreVeyon Henderson's my boy, right? I love TreVeyon Henderson. Even though Rutgers is pretty good against the run, this guy is just a beast. He's an absolute monster. I'm going to be getting my shares of Travion. He'll be one of my top 3 backs played this week, even against a pretty good Rutgers defense. He's tough to stop. And then all the receivers are in play. Olave, Wilson, they've priced them up, so you got to pay up. But if you're playing Stroud, it's worth getting one of them in there. And I think one nice way to get different is Smith-Njigba. He's got getting that many less targets. He's very involved in the offense. You can save $1,000, a little bit more dollars, get him in your offense and build around him. So I'm okay with any of these 3. Jackson Smith-Njigba, just for salary savings, I think I like the most. But as we've seen, any of these guys can go off. And then on the Rutgers side, Vedral is a scary one, right? Because you've never seen them really do anything that good, but they never really try to air out. And if they get down, which I think they might, like 21-0, they're going to have to start throwing. And he might have an opportunity against what is a susceptible Ohio State defense to accumulate some points. The only reason he's interesting is because he's 5,500. So if we want to play him, we can really squeeze in some of these studs. And all he'll need to do is probably throw 2 touchdowns and he'll meet value. So I'm okay with taking a shot on Vedral, more so for GPPs. Honestly, one of my favorite running back plays of the week is Pacheco, because Ohio State looks like they are not good against the run. And Rutgers is going to want to run the ball. So the game script is there. They're going to give them plenty of looks. And Ohio State's susceptible. So at 4,800, this is probably my favorite value running back on the slate, and I will be overweight on him because I think he will have a really good game. And then the pass catchers for Rutgers, Bo Melton's their number 1 guy. He's probably who you want to pair with Vedral, but Shameem Jones and Aaron Krushenk, they've really tried to get Krushenk involved at 3,400. He's a good value in a game that team could be getting killed and having to throw. I think you can do worse than Krushenk in the 3K range. So if you're diving down here, Krushenk would be the guy I'd go to. And if you want to be different from Krushenk, Shameem Jones, they throw to him. I mean, listen, he hasn't had any good games, but it's another one of those. If he gets you 4 catches, 40 yards, and a touchdown at 3,200, that's blowing out his value. So both of these guys are in play as extreme values. Don't go overweight on them. They're not cash plays, but if you want to squeeze somebody in on a team that should be getting killed and have a positive game flow for these kind of secondary receivers, then these would be the 2 guys I would target. That is it. That's the slate. I know we have a few questions in the chat, so I'll try and go through it and hit on some of these. Some few folks were asking, Violet Parks was asking about Velus Jones and the Tennessee side. That's a sneaky game because the Tennessee game, because Missouri's defense is so bad and they throw so much, there could be a high potential there. But I just think there's better games to target. So Velus Jones, it wouldn't be a bad play. I'd be okay with you playing Velus Jones. He's one of the better receivers. But they have other mouths to feed too, and I just don't trust the quarterbacks on the Tennessee side. So that's why I'm hesitant on that front. You're going to want to get some shares of Alabama, Ole Miss in your lineups, unless you're playing a GPP and trying to be different by completely fading that game. And that's a wrap. I think for the most part, there's the plays out there. There's what I like about this week are there's a few obvious games to target and there's a few obvious games to fade. So while it's a huge slate as always, we can narrow it down ourselves to who we want to target, and hopefully that will be the answer to focusing our player pool and making us some money. So that's a wrap for this week, team. Come back next week. Let me know how you did. I feel good about this week, so I'm confident in my plays. I'm feeling really confident going into the weekend. I wish everyone the best of luck, and let me know how you did.